Hey everybody, it's Sophie and Marco, and guess what? It's Marco's turn to rank his Stephen King movies. And remember what I said before, we have seen some different movies. So I've seen some he hasn't seen, and vice versa.
I've seen 31, whereas she's only seen 23.
24.
24.
So go ahead, Marco. Tell us, start from the bottom and work your way up.
Alright. Are you sure you want me to go to the bottom of the bottom? I mean, these,
That's what I had to do.
these are trash movies. So the first movie I have is the remake of Children of the Corn. Ugh. And now this movie, remember we did a review of the original one, and we didn't really like it that much compared to what everyone else says it's like a masterpiece. We thought it was just okay, but this remake is so much worse. It tries to be exactly like the book. It has a sex scene in it, whereas it doesn't even have any violence. So, in the movie called Children, Children of the Corn, they have a sex scene, but they don't have any violence. I find that really alarming. It's a very boring movie. It has a dark ending. It doesn't have characters you can root for. The characters of Isaac and Malachi are horribly casted by I mean, Malachi isn't even in the movie. They show him for like one shot, and it's like a cameo.
Oh.
So the next one is Secret Window with Johnny Depp.
Hmm.
I just think that this movie is really what's the word? Un
Uninspiring?
no, it's just not very good.
It's a
There's
waste.
there's nothing good about it really, and it's another. It just there's no point to it that I can see. There's just it's I wouldn't ever want to watch it again. Number 29 is the remake to Salem's Lot. Are you noticing a trend here? Remakes. Salem's Lot with Rob Lowe. You would think that with Rob Lowe it would be a lot better, but actually it's very unmemorable. I can't remember it at all. But I do remember hating it as a kid. And as a kid I hated remakes and I still hate remakes. So that's why it's so far down. Number 28 is Children of the Corn 6. Isaac's not really revenge. This movie is a big waste, and it's basically false advertising because the cover, Isaac takes up almost half of the page, and he's not even really in the movie very much. And the plot is stupid. The main and another movie where the main characters are just not likable.
Hmm.
And as I said, Isaac's hardly in it. It's called Isaac's Revenge. And the whole thing, Isaac in the first Children of the Corn, he got eaten by the monster. And so how is he in the hospital in a coma? That's stupid.
The monster must have spit him out because he didn't taste good.
Nope, that never happened. Because even if he did, the whole cornfield got set on fire. Remember Safi?
Mm-hmm.
Number 27 is the Carrie remake. This movie has some terrible casting in who plays Carrie because
Who was it?
I don't know. It has terrible casting. It's just there's nothing. All these remakes need to do something different or do something that has a point to it because with the Children of the Corn remake, the Salem's Lot Carrie, there was no point to remaking them. There a lot of these movies that they remake, it seems like they just remake them just to remake them to either make money or because they think that kids won't go back and watch the originals. Well, that's the kids' problem, or that's their parents' problem for not saying, "Hey, son, why don't you go watch the original Salem's Lot? You'll have a lot of fun." Number
Scary.
number 26 is Children of the Corn 4. I remember there were some creepy moments from this movie. It has Naomi Watts as the main character.
Hmm.
It's actually a pretty good movie compared to Children of the Corn 6, of course. But that's not really an accomplishment. Next, 25, I have Stephen King's The Shining remake. I pushed this movie as far as I could up the list because I think it has a lot of so bad it's funny moments in it, such as the main kid who has these buck teeth that are always sticking out, and he's a horrible actor. And then there's a lot of funny moments, but overall it's another remake where, and this time it's all Stephen King's fault because he thought that Stanley Kubrick ruined his book, so he wanted to make a movie that was basically the book.
Mm.
And the problem with that is that books are not movies.
Mm-mm.
Number 24, I have Storm of the Century. Storm of the Century is perhaps the worst Stephen King miniseries. It has a lot of filler. It has a great villain, though. But the ending is, ugh. I hate the ending.
Very depressing.
Number 23, I have Cat's Eye. Now, Cat's Eye, it's another one. I can't really remember it at all. I watched it once. I think I remember one out of the 3 stories, but it's just not very memorable for me to put it any higher. Speaking of anthology movies, 22 is Creepshow. And then 21 is Creepshow 2. Uh-oh.
Creepshow 2 is better by a degree than Creepshow 1.
Yeah, because Creepshow 2 has I don't really like anthology movies, and I don't really like any of the stories in Creepshow 1, but in Creepshow 2 there's this really good story about a raft, and these 4 teenagers are going on this lake trip, and they go on this wooden raft, but then there's some sort of a blob of oil or something inside the lake, and the blob is slowly consuming the raft. And I really, really like that story a lot. With Creepshow, I think it's kind of overrated. I like the story with Stephen King playing the farmer, but only for the effects, really. Number 20, I have The Green Mile. Safi's shaking her head in confusion and dismay. Because
What's your opinion?
well, it's another one I can't really remember liking it a lot.
You should watch it again just for fun.
It has a negative ending, and it's very negative compared to Shawshank Redemption. It has great acting, it has great directing, it has great writing. It's negative, so I don't really like it as much. That's why it was so funny that Safi put it so high. It's obvious that she hasn't really seen it, because
Yeah, I have.
if she had seen it, she wouldn't have put something so negative so high.
I've seen it multiple times.
You keep telling yourself that, Safi. Number 19, this is going to turn some heads. Number 19 is Children of the Corn 3, Urban Harvest. This is a sequel I actually think is a lot of fun. I like the kid who plays Isaac, although he's no Isaac. It actually has Charlize Theron in it, that bitch,
Mm-mm.
in real life. I don't even remember her from the movie because it's Urban Harvest. It's all about him going to this black school, and I don't remember her. But it was a very entertaining movie, and I would actually recommend it. It not for the horror, but just for the fun. Number 18 is Langoliers. This one's okay. It's kind of like a dragged out Twilight Zone episode. It has a lot of horrible acting in it. The monsters are stupid as F. They're cheesy. They look terrible. They're not scary. They're awful. In fact, it was a big letdown because it's directed by Tom Holland. We all know what Tom Holland's capable of. And I don't know what he was thinking with these monsters. I mean, you could have shaven off your beard and then made a better monster than the computer animated ones that they did. That being said, I like the characters in it besides the annoying and stupid little girl who I was glad she got taken out of the movie because her character was just constantly annoying. And number 17, I have Cujo. I was very disappointed in this movie. I was expecting great things from it, but when you expect great things, you're often set up for disappointment when it comes to Stephen King. It has a great premise, it has great actors, but overall, it takes like an entire hour to set up the movie. And then as soon as the hour's over, there's only 20 minutes left. So there's hardly anything to like. And the stuff that is there to like isn't really that good anyway. Number 16, I have The Dead Zone. This one I put last out of all the recent ones that we reviewed. I thought that it was very disappointing. Christopher Walken was fantastic in it, but the choppiness of the movie really turned me off. And for number 15, I have Pet Sematary. Pet Sematary, I think, is a classic. It's creepy, it's scary, it has a lot of visuals that you'll never forget, and it's definitely worth checking out. Number 14, I have the original Children of the Corn because of Isaac and Malachi. That's literally the only reason. If they weren't in this movie, it would be all the way down next to the remake. That's how bad it would be if they weren't in it. So there you go. Number 13, I have Stephen King's Rose Red. I don't really like this movie as much as I used to, but I don't like it. I like a lot of characters. I like a lot of the jokes, but I think it's not scary. It doesn't have a good payoff like most of Stephen King's work. And I was left wanting more, especially because it felt like it needed another draft. And what a coincidence that Stephen King only wrote one draft of the script.
Huh.
And now that tells you something.
Wonder why.
Because he was in a car accident.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
that's a shame.
that's not an excuse for releasing a bad movie. I'm sorry.
It's pretty. The car accident, I don't know anything about this car. I know he was hit by a car like he was walking or running and he was hit by a car.
If he died, that would be...
Severely injured.
If he died, that would be a good excuse. But a car accident is not a good excuse for releasing a bad product. Number 12, I have the remake of It. This movie is basically a glorified kids movie. It has a lot of nostalgia in it. it has some great kid actors in it, and it has a lot of great moments. My favorite part of the movie is when the bully goes on a murder spree. But guess what? We don't even get to see the murder spree, even though it's rated R. What do you think about that, Sophie? It's rated R, and we still don't. We have to cut away, because that's modern horror for you. Just cut away, cut away, cut away. Less is better. Number 11, I have The Stand. The Stand did not make it into my top 10 because of really bad parts like Rob Lowe getting killed and the sort of the Harold storyline. I hated that. I thought it could have been done a lot better. But overall, I actually like it a lot compared to these other movies like Cujo, Carrie remake. Ugh. I like it a lot better than most of Stephen King's work. But there were these such glaring errors that I couldn't put it in my top 10, which is unfortunate. Number 10, I have the original Carrie. I would rather watch a lot of these movies on this list more so than Carrie, because Carrie's really negative and it doesn't really have a good payoff at all. I mean, she goes crazy, a lot of people die, and then she dies. That's not really a good payoff in my opinion.
Mildly speaking.
I think that it should have been revealed that other kids had psychic powers, or I mean telepathic powers, and and they would like battle her or something. Because it would be a sort of message that she's not the only one who's having a bad time, and like she's not the only one who has these powers. I just there's something about it where it needs improvement. It's not a perfect movie, it's not a bad movie, but it's a classic. Number 9, I have another classic, the original Shawshank Redemption. All the way down at number 9, Safi. What do you have to say about that?
It's your prerogative.
God, Safi, you're really making... You're... Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
You have your opinion, and I have mine.
It's a classic movie. I like it a lot. But in terms of Stephen King movies, which is what we're ranking here, right, Safi?
It's actually hard to believe it is a Stephen King movie.
That's why I don't like it as much, because it doesn't really remind me of Stephen King's work.
Not at all.
It seems like it's its own thing, and it doesn't really make me want to rank it higher, because it feels like there's stuff missing. It's another thing that feels incomplete. There's no supernatural elements to it.
No.
No monsters, nothing.
It's all hardcore reality.
And it's a masterpiece. It should have won the Oscar. Not really. Quiz Show should have won that year. But it could have won the Oscar if Quiz Show wasn't there. It should have. Because Forrest Gump is overrated. Anyway. Number 8, I have the original It. This is another movie where if you take one thing out of the equation, it sucks. And in It, you have Tim Curry. And if you took Tim Curry out of the movie, it would be all the way down in front of the Shining remake at number 23. Or 24, I mean. So the next movie I have at number 7 is... Well, let me just say one more thing. It's enjoyable all throughout, even after the kid section of the movie. A lot of people just say the kid section is good, but I like both. I do not like the reveal at the end of him being a giant spider. I thought that was stupid, though. At number 7, I have 1408. You haven't seen 1408, Safi. We need to get you to
Is that the
watch
one-
that.
Is that the one hotel room?
Yeah.
I think I have seen it.
Well, that's bad because it should have been on the list.
I'm not positive. Who's
No,
the
you
main
have-
character?
John Cusack.
Oh yeah, I might have seen that, but I may not have seen all of it. I may have seen just because somebody else was watching it, and I.
Get your head straight, Safi. I saw it with my older brother. It was the first horror movie I saw in theaters.
Hmm.
He was upset that he had to take me to see it. Yeah. And I love 1408. I think it's a great movie. It isn't really a classic, but it's very enjoyable in terms of when you talk about modern horror. This movie is near the tip top of modern horror movies because it has a great story. It's like The Shining if The Shining took place in one room and you couldn't escape the one room. That's what it's like. Nobody survives for more than an hour. How cool is that? How suspenseful is that with John Cusack? Really? And Samuel L. Jackson? It's a great... The one thing I don't like, though, as I said, a lot of these movies fail with ... the endings. The payoffs. The culmination of the story. And 1408 has like 3 different endings, and none of them are really satisfactory to me. In number 6, I have Salem's Lot, the original. Boop! I just booped my cat's nose for everyone freaked out. Salem's Lot, the original, even though it's a TV movie, it really has a lot of creepy moments. It has an okay story. The one thing I don't like are the main characters. I think they're kind of boring. They don't get a lot of a chance to kind of be a character, but I like all the effects in this movie are fantastic, and so I really like Salem's Lot. Now we're getting into the movies that are really, really good. At number 5, I have the original Shining.
Ah.
What can you say about this movie that hasn't already been said? Well, as a kid, I thought it was boring, and now I think it's good all the way throughout, but there are 4 other Stephen King movies that I personally like better, and it's just my personal preference. The Shining could easily be number 1. Number 4, I have Misery. Misery is a very, very creepy movie with a very realistic story, but still this really weird woman, this obsessed fan. And I like the isolation aspect and how he's trapped inside this house, and it's really good. If you haven't seen it, it's really good. In the book, she actually does worse things to him. She like cuts off his legs or something.
Oh, jeez.
And I'm glad that it was brutal. And then you learn about her backstory, and that's even scarier. What are you doing? Why are you sticking your paw out like that? What are you doing? At number 3, I have Silver Bullet. Number 3, it's a very enjoyable. It's a lot of fun, and I really like the story. There are a lot of issues with it, but I don't really watch a lot of werewolf movies. So for Stephen King to make me want to watch more werewolf movies or really like this werewolf movie, I have to commend him for that. The one thing I really like about this movie is how it's a werewolf who uses a bat. He's a werewolf. He doesn't need a bat. He's using a bat. He's brutal. This movie's a lot of fun, but it has a lot of heart. It has a lot of dark elements to it. It has a lot of comedy. It's the perfect package. Number 2, I have A Return to Salem's Lot.
Mm.
This movie has always been and is still my favorite vampire movie. I love how there's this town, and the town's already full of vampires. They have this history, and they sort of have this vampire culture, and I love the characters. It gets really dark too. Like they have these little kids being married to each other. That they have the main character's son. He wants to be a vampire, and it's like they're trying to keep him away from them. And it's really dark and good. What's left, Safi?
Mm.
What's the last one? What's the one that I haven't mentioned?
Thinner.
Yeah, Thinner, directed and written by, written by Tom Holland. And number 1, Thinner, my favorite Stephen King movie. Wow. I already talked about this movie in great detail, but one of the reasons why I put it in number 1 is because it's so enjoyable, and it made me want to watch it again immediately after I saw it the first time. Another thing that kind of sets it apart is the main character doesn't die. A lot of these Stephen King movies, the main character dies. Carrie, The Stand, a lot of main characters die.
The Shining.
Yeah, there are a lot of these Stephen King movies where the main character dies. And
Children of the Corn.
Yep, Children of the Corn. Well, the remake. But Thinner and Thinner, he gets to survive, but for a price.
Yeah.
And I love the ending, the twist ending. There's so many good things to say about this movie. You just need to watch it. It's so much better than anything else Stephen King has ever done. And this is coming from someone who's watched the Children of the Corn remake that no one heard about, and has watched all of his classics like It, Shawshank, Green Mile. So there you go. What are your final words, Safi?
It sounds like a very fair list.
What do you have to say?
Oh, I already talked about mine.
What are your sort of analysis points of my list?
I thought you gave everybody everything a fair assessment.
I sort of put a few movies higher than I would have, but then there were other movies that I would have put higher, but they had these big flaws in them, like The Stand. The Stand, I would love to put that higher, but it had all these problems. And the same thing with Carrie. With Carrie, I would love to put it a lot lower, but it's such a classic, and it's such an enjoyable short ride of a movie. So.
Okay, well, that sounds good.
We'll be coming back with movies about Hollywood. That's our next theme. We're going to be watching movies like Ed Wood, Inland Empire, Sunset Boulevard, and more. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. See ya.